All right. So I think the next thing I want to touch on with you, Leo, is the 45L tax credit that's for new construction homes.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and it specifically goes to the builder. I know there's been a little confusion about that in the past, but talk to me a little bit about 45L, this $2,000 federal tax credit, how builders would qualify, all that kind of stuff.
Okay. So the 45L tax credit basically requires that a new home has a 50% reduction in heating and cooling requirements and a 10% energy reduction from the envelope as compared to the 2006 IECC reference home. So if it meets those two requirements, it qualifies.
The
The
nice thing
homes,
about, sorry to interrupt, but the nice thing about this with the Indiana Energy Code being on the 2018 IECC is it's already a kind of a more stringent code than what this
absolutely.
federal tax credit is based on. So,
Yeah,
uh,
it's most of the way there, as is, built for the prescriptive reference home.
so what I
Um,
wanted to kind of touch on with this is that, this tax credit has been around for several years, but every year it seems like it takes some time for it to get extended, and a lot of times it's extended retroactively.
right.
So you don't even know until the year's over that the houses that you built last year may qualify. But this year they actually extended it forward through the end of 2020,
Yes,
and
it is.
there's some hope that that'll get extended further forward, maybe with some changes. But you want to talk a little bit about how builders can kind of use this tax credit as a tool to offset some of the costs for the new energy code
Absolutely.
change?
Yeah. So, and again, working with the rater during the projected rating phase, um, you know, you get $2,000 from the government by meeting the tax credit requirements. So you can basically make projected changes from your model to show what would meet the tax credit, and then working with your rater determine, is that cost effective. So maybe the some charges or changes would only equal out to $1,000. You're still netting $1,000 profit in that regard. But in a lot of cases, without the correct energy modeling software, it would be almost impossible to figure out what would be required to meet the tax credit.
So let's talk about a couple of different housing types and whether or not they are suited to fit this kind of tax credit. And
Sure.
because not all houses are going to be easy to attain this tax credit. And specifically, what we've found is that houses that are built on slab foundations,
Hmm.
especially smaller houses on slab foundations, are very difficult to get it to pass without doing a lot of extra stuff that is probably well and above $2,000 worth of, improvements.
Right.
Um, that being said, a lot of houses in Indiana are built on basements.
Hmm.
And if the house has a basement, it's insulated to code, and they have a high efficiency HVAC equipment, and they've got mechanical ventilation, which the code requires now. A lot of times those houses are passing kind of as is, and there may be one or two extra things that you could do to bump it up to get it to pass. But basement houses are a good qualifier,
Yep.
especially if they're larger houses. Even crawl space houses can qualify. Again, usually it's a little bit larger houses. Apartments have been brought up to me a lot recently, and I'm actually working with one client to see if we can get an apartment complex to qualify. I have not, we have not specifically worked on any projects where they have in the past, but this is something that we're pursuing to see
Hmm.
if, the crux on the apartments is there's a couple of them. So you've got a really small building envelope for each unit that you're testing, and you have typically not high efficiency HVAC equipment that developers are
Right.
putting in apartments. But I've seen some apartment complexes go up where they have like a central geothermal system
Hmm.
that powers all the units, and they've gone and upgraded the wall insulation, the ceiling insulation, some of these other things, and those kind of projects may qualify. Um, if you have a regular single family house that's built with geothermal, that almost always qualifies for this federal tax credit, in addition to the geothermal tax credit that you can get. Um, what I want everybody to know is that a lot of the houses that you build today very well may qualify, but you need to let us know up front that this is something that you're pursuing if you're a builder, and we need to know how you're going to insulate it, what type of HVAC you're putting into it, and then based on that, we can do the energy modeling and see if you're going to be close or not. And if you are close, we can say, all right, you've got a few options here to make it work.
Yeah, and the nice thing about our software that we use to model these houses is that we can generate a report now that actually shows what, for the reference home specifically for that model, what would the 2006 prescriptive requirements be, and then show you what you're doing and how far off you are, and kind of fine tune it down to the assembly by assembly value, where you can make set adjustments in order to get it to that 50% reduction in heating and cooling, or 10% energy reduction from the envelope.
Yeah, the envelope's typically not the part that people fail on. It's usually on the heating and cooling side of things.
Absolutely.
So this documentation, so if the house actually does pass, that tax credit form is going to be produced by you guys, right?
That's correct.
So we do the rating on the house, we do the final inspection, we give them the co-compliance documentation, but the official document that the builder has to give to their accountant, their CPA or whatever, will come from Energy Efficient Homes Midwest, or if they're using another provider, it will come directly from that provider. Correct. And that's really important too, because there will be basically kind of a seal or stamp of approval from that provider on that document. And if you're working with another company who is providing these tax credit documents for you, and it doesn't have a seal like that, like it's been approved by a provider, it could be fraudulent. And there's been some cases of fraud of people doing this kind of thing in the past. So always make sure you're on the up and up with this kind of thing. You've got all your documentation together. Is there anything else you want to touch on as far as the code, the 45L there?
No, I think that about covers it.
One other thing I wanted to throw out there, it's another kind of incentive for builders to really jump on board with using energy raters as a way to comply with this energy code, are the rebates that are available for new homes from some of the utility companies. So I know Vectren in Indiana offers several $100s. I mean, I think it's between like $600 and $1,200 per house, depending on the score of the house and what type of gas equipment they have in that house. I think one of the Touchstone REMCs in Harrison County is doing something as well. I'm sure there's some other ones you probably know about as well.
Yeah, I gotta pull that up.
Didn't mean to throw that on you real quick, but
no worries.
It's real important when builders are looking at this, how many buckets can I kind of pull from to offset my expenses when I'm trying to comply with these new requirements? And tax credits are definitely one. Using an energy rater instead of doing the prescriptive path is another cost-saving measure. And then you've got these rebate options as well.
Yeah, so for Vectren, they actually have it broken out into Gold, Platinum, and Platinum Plus, and also by utility type, so both for electric and for gas. And it is based off of a HERS score. So Gold is less than or equal to a HERS score of 63. Platinum would be less than or equal to a HERS score of 60. And then the Platinum Plus would be a HERS score of 60 or lower, plus some additional components in order to meet those rebate incentives.
So you're in the low 60s, basically mid to low 60s or lower than that. And I think I saw something recently from ResNet where it said the average for the state of Indiana was like 67 or 64 or something like that. It's in the mid 60s.
Yeah, so I've actually got that information as well. The average score is 65.
Okay.
In 2019.
So just, you're basically right there. And if you do a couple other things, you're probably you may already be qualifying for those rebates.
Yep.
Let's see. Anything else you can think of that will be beneficial for HVAC contractors or builders to kind of understand, whether it's energy code related or 45L, just trying to navigate through this?
Yeah, so really just like kind of what we talked about before in terms of the air leakage and duct leakage sealing. Again, the air leakage change from 7 to 5 ACH at 50 is not insurmountable. It is a little bit harder under certain build types. However, that duct leakage to the outside change to 4 CFM per 100 is going to be really tough for some people that are not used to meeting it to meet, and just need to pay super close attention to every detail throughout the process and ensure that, all correct steps are being taken in order to get a proper seal and everything.
So that just made me think of something else. So like if you've been building a certain way, say you've been building patio homes and they're all 1,500 to 2,000 square feet, and now you're finding it difficult to meet this requirement for duct leakage, you might want to think about the way that you're actually constructing the house or even insulating the house so that you could build it so that that ductwork is actually inside the conditioned space of the house. And it sounds a little, it's not a traditional way of doing it, but I have seen where they'll basically put the main duct trunk line underneath the ceiling level, and then they'll frame around that. And so they basically have a bulkhead through a hallway, and the duct kind of comes out from the center of the house. So now the ductwork's not up in the attic. It's not outside conditioned space. And technically, it wouldn't need to be tested if the HVAC equipment was also inside the conditioned space.
Correct.
But another alternative would be, if you want to keep the ductwork up in the attic, you don't like the bulkhead option or whatever, instead of doing a traditional blown-in insulation in the attic, you could do a sealed and spray foamed conditioned attic. I mean, there's other ways to do a conditioned attic, but spray foam's the most common way. And so you could basically not pay for all the ventilation, the soft ventilation, the ridge vents, the gable vents, the attic insulation doesn't go in. And so you just spray foam the roof deck, and that's going to be, a trade-off. So I don't know. Builders are going to have to basically price that out and see which way is kind of more cost-effective and which way is really just easier for me to be certain that I'm building a house that I know is going to perform well, be comfortable, and meet code every time. To me, either doing the bulkhead option or doing the conditioned attic option is going to serve those purposes very well. Hoping and praying that your HVAC contractor meticulously air seals every joint, nook, and cranny in that duct system and gets it to pass on a slab house.
Right. Another potential option to throw out there is to have them actually do a rough-in test of the ductwork, and try to identify the problems up front. But again, at the end of the day, working with a rater to identify and solve these problems proactively is really one of the best things that builders can do in order to help meet these new energy requirements.
Yeah, and one last thing I'll leave people with is the whole, mechanical ventilation was added as a requirement, I think, because there's been this preconceived notion that as houses get tighter, you will need mechanical ventilation at some point, and that is true as a blanket statement. However, I personally believe that if the HVAC contractor is sizing their equipment properly, particularly the cooling side, that equipment will dehumidify the air inside the house better than trying to use mechanical ventilation as a band-aid, which really that's not the purpose to remove moisture necessarily. I mean, an exhaust fan removes moisture from a bathroom, but it's not the best way to comply with that requirement. So just wanted to kind of throw that in there as well. As these houses get tighter, as they get better insulated, HVAC contractors really need to make sure that they are sizing the air conditioners and the furnaces properly. And what we're seeing is still, kind of the way that it's been for the last 30 years, and it's causing problems with short cycling. So if you've got a 2,000 square foot house and it's been air sealed and insulated to code today, I do not want to see anything bigger than a 2-ton system in that house, unless it is a 2-stage or multi-stage equipment, or you're probably going to have some humidity problems inside that house.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, well, Leo, I appreciate you kind of jumping on here with me and giving a little knowledge to the builders and subcontractors.
Yeah, absolutely.
You may be watching this. There's going to be, I'm sure, lots of questions over the next few months, and I'll do some more of these training videos to try to help out people. But I'll catch you on the next one, and I definitely appreciate your time, man.
All right, absolutely. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.